why does this matter? Well, where did we start with this conversation, right? What's the desired outcome? We talk about the new producer versus seasoned producer, and the new producer, I'm just going to get this deal done, boom. How many can I get done? Boom, 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 hamster wheel. And the seasoned producer goes, no, I'm gonna work through this person's network. So if I can deliver on all that we just shared,
long term,
and I can meet that expectation because I've edified my service team and our experience, that customer is going to walk away from that transaction saying, wow, man, Brett, his team, man, they just do such a good job. Man, who's your guys' insurance? So they're going to refer more people objectively. They're going to stay with you longer, which is they're going to have more lifetime value. They're going to buy more products for you because you've asked, tougher questions, quote unquote, on the front end and understood and set that expectation. And they're going to refer more of their friends in their network, reducing the customer acquisition costs for you. And so all three things are extremely important. And regardless of what business end, those are all three things that you would track religiously. And as a producer, your micro system within the system is no different, right? It's just a microcosm of what a greater business or a bigger business would track. And there's a reason they track those things.
Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development. Welcome back to another episode of the Be Extraordinary podcast. Today is for the new producer. Obviously, we're going to talk specifically about the insurance business and our perspective inside that game. But I think this is relevant to any young producer, any new producer that maybe you're listening to this and you've been doing something for a couple years. Maybe you're brand new. You're looking to break through to that veteran stage. Or maybe you're just a student of the craft and you're looking for maybe some new tools and tricks to be able to grow your income, grow your sales, grow your influence. We're going to dive deep into some mindset, some process, and some actual techniques that we've seen from some of the top producers within our agency, but outside of our walls, that hopefully you can borrow from to help take your sales game to the next level. Mr. Taylor Young, thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir. Let's get in.
Get in it, man. So real quick, so let me give Taylor Young's perspective on this. I want to get the listener. People don't know you as being they know you as kind of your role now, but there was a point in time where you were not only the number one producer within the agency, just in volume, but you were the number one agent in regards to premium. You also went on after that to be the number one producer from a marketing perspective, bringing in, God, what was it that year? How many closings did you generate?
From a couple
thousand in the field. So, I mean, number one, I want you guys to know you're talking to somebody who's done it at a really, really high level, but also you've had a chance to now lead the marketing and sales team at that point. I don't know, it was 20 producers at some point under your leadership, and just have had a really wide viewpoint on a lot of different personalities, perspectives, seasons, roles. And so, and just being a student of the game, I'm really excited to just have a conversation with you today about some of these things that I have seen lately from new producers versus seasoned producers, and the challenge that people have when they first get into this game, because it really is a drastic difference when a client is speaking to somebody that's been doing it a very long time versus somebody that just started, and has very little to do with what they know about the product. It has very little to do about their knowledge about the business. It has much more to do with these three things that we're getting into today: the way that they think, the beliefs that they hold, the mindset that they have, their process in which they execute, and then candidly, we call it, post-binding expectations in regards to once they're done with the sale, what type of expectations do they set? So before I got into those three, I just want to kind of open up to you to kind of have a quick 101 and your perspective on that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I would encourage, too, you say new producers. I also just think new in a sense that maybe you're not getting what you want out of your own production. Maybe you have bigger goals for yourself that you're not quite hitting. You could be frustrated. It could be because it's all about time horizon. When you get into sales, you get into anything. And I think hopefully what we talk about today just can shrink your time horizon to get to where you want to get. We call it success compression. By developing a skill with a greater velocity, it allows you to compress the amount of time in which it takes you to become a master at a thing. And so although there are no shortcuts and reps are reps, not every rep is equal. And I want to talk a little bit about that as we go on.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I've never heard that. That's sweet. Well, let's get into mindset. One of the things that has been very, I don't want to say the word prevalent, but eye-opening to me is the perspective and the belief in the difference in thinking of a newer producer. I know you say it's not necessarily a young producer, but a newer producer or somebody that's not necessarily where the above average or elite threshold would be, is they have some different mindsets and some different beliefs that limit them from kind of getting to the place where they need to be able to be most effective. And so one of those I wanted to talk about is just prioritization. Like, what did they care about? What do they prioritize as the most important things? And so talk to me a little bit about the new producer versus the seasoned producer. What does the new producer, from your perspective, prioritize versus what the seasoned producer maybe prioritizes?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in terms of philosophy, when you're talking about mindset, I think it's linear thinking versus exponential. And I think the new producer says, okay, I got a deal. I got to get this deal done. Right? Let me do whatever it takes this person's calling about homeowner's insurance. So let me do whatever it takes to get that homeowner's insurance done and satisfy that order, if you will. I think the seasoned producer is thinking in terms of exponential. Is I have a lead, that is a family I get to serve, and by doing a good job, I'm going to earn the right to hopefully gain access to that person's network. And so this one deal is going to become 5 deals, then 25 deals, and 100 deals. And so that's how I hold what happens when a lead comes in and how you view it and everything in between.
Interesting. Okay. That's a great perspective. So is that, so it's almost like I'm so worried about what's in front of me. I can't see past the transaction, right. I guess, if you will. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's fair. What about when I'm speaking with the client, as far as if I'm a new producer versus a seasoned producer, what is the mindset there as far as what do I believe that the client cares about,
Yeah, I think the new producer immediately goes to price. I think you're immediately thinking that the client is calling because they want to save money, or the client is calling and they want the least expensive option. And I think the seasoned producer sees time and says, how can me doing a really good job in solving this problem save this person time? In more of a quality essence of protection, time, convenience. I get to work with you so I don't have to become the expert, so I don't have to deal with it. So I think it's the lens in which you are assuming what problem you're solving for the client.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, new producers, let's just call it what it is. Like they're brand new in the game. They're not financially doing great. They just started, right? They're still working their way up. So a lot of times newer producers, they buy in a way that's price driven.
Right.
It's like, and a lot of times you're serving a client that might be affluent or is a family that has means, and you're prioritizing your needs of how you would buy, which is not the way that this is not the way these types of people buy. Like, I know when I think about my own life, like the time and convenience factor is infinitely more important than how much something costs.
It's not even close.
But back in the day, it wasn't that way. And so it's hard to put yourself in that mindset when you're not there yet. And I love that, because I see that is a huge gap. And it's like, well, how do you put yourself in the place where you understand that before you're actually there?
Yeah, I think it's in the same lens as we continue with this theme. I think the new producer makes assumptions. I think the seasoned producer tests assumptions. Oof. And whether it's sales, leadership, marketing, we come in and assumptions and stereotypes, the reason that they continue in lifetime in all these areas of life, because they're shortcuts to helping me understand where this person's coming. I can make an assumption on what that person values based upon where they're calling from, the speed of their talking, what profession they're from, what questions they're asking me. And sometimes those assumptions save time and headache for both the client and the producer.
Yeah.
But sometimes those assumptions, if not tested, can lead you to solving a problem that they're not interested in solving. Makes sense.
So good. So good. So let's get into some tactics on that, because I hear two things for priorities. I hear, one, get the deal, and it's just about the deal, versus, no, this deal gives me access to a network that gives me infinite deals. Mm-hmm. So it's about the network. It's not about the deal, right? Mm-hmm. So let's hit on that one real quick. Tactically, if I'm a new producer and, I'm so excited that this deal just came across my desk, right? And the reality is I need to hit this in order to make my comp. It's a big deal, and I'm not necessarily thinking about the network. I'm just thinking, man, I need to be able to find a place to be able to place this business and be able to get this person to say yes. What are some tactical things someone can implement to be able to kind of break this belief and move over to this, no, this deal is the gateway, it's the doorway, and that's what's infinitely way more important. What are some things that someone can do to be able to kind of move over to that side to be more effective with getting access to the network versus just doing a good job on a deal?
Yeah, happens a lot with new producers within our ecosystem, right? You get the home insurance lead and you're so focused, man, I don't want to ask them about the umbrella and the car insurance yet, because then I might scare them off, and I really need to get this home insurance lead done, right? So I think that's what you're talking about. And I call them anchor questions, where you can insert anchor questions in the front of a conversation when you're starting that allow the prospect to give you an idea of where they sit and what problem they're looking to solve. An example would be, hey, great. I'm so glad you called and look forward to helping with the home insurance. Obviously, we work with so-and-so referral partner. They do a great job. By the way, how's it going? Ask an early question that allows them to open up on how the experience is going, on how they got to you. That'll give you a variety of answers. They'll either say, oh, gosh, man, we've been looking for a house for 2 years, and I'm just so good, whatever it is. Or they go, you know what, I've been shopping online. I just can't get somebody to answer the phone, man. And no one will call me back. I've submitted 3 quotes, and just no one will call me back. Thank you for answering. Wow, that tells me a lot with one question, right? So let me understand where this lead came from. Let me edify the third party, whether it's a referral source or the process in which they came to me. And then let me ask a question and stop talking. The new producer keeps talking after questions. Okay, I've done this, where instead of just saying, oh, great, this looks good, which credit card would you like to use? Silence. Let the silence do the work. The new producer goes, which credit card would you like to use? You can use Visa, MasterCard, right? You're rambling because it makes the silence makes you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But it also confuses the prospect. It doesn't give them a clarity of what we're doing here. And so first of all, I would open it up and I would ask a question earlier rather than later. And sometimes when I hear a new producer on the phone, I'm like, man, you're talking a heck of a lot. Like, you're going in long spurts without allowing space for the prospect. Why? So that would be a tactic I would use. And then we also talk about pre-closing, and I would love for you to speak on this, is if an anchor question is one thing I used to love to use. Man, I'm so glad that you called today. I really think we can help you. Hey, I'm curious, how many agents do you work with on the insurance stuff? What do you mean? Well, look, you're calling me for homeowners insurance. I'm thrilled, but obviously you buy car insurance and jewelry and some other stuff. So I'm just curious, how many agents help you with that? Oh, it's funny you say that, man. I first got car insurance because I got off my parents' policy. So I'm with State Farm there. And I'm actually just calling you because I got referred. I actually, I have a boat with somebody else. I don't even know who that's with. Okay, cool. That's going to tell me something. So I call those anchor questions. Those questions can be the same every time. And then you just navigate whatever answer they give you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when they answer that question, what they're kind of giving me is what, and then I would ask another question, and I would call that a clarifying question. is to say, okay, cool, man. That makes sense. That seems to happen a lot. Hey, would you think if we can do a really good job, would it be easier for you to just have one agency that you can call or one team you can call? I mean, if it's all competitive on price and they could look at your stuff every year, you think that would be easier? Oh man, yeah. I mean, obviously the home insurance is my priority, but quite frankly, I'm all spread out. So yeah, if you could do that, that would be great. Perfect. Boom. Okay. Wow. Now and notice that didn't take long. That doesn't take 5 minutes. That can happen in 2 minutes, 45 seconds. So now you know what game you're in, if that makes sense.
That's great. Yeah, you just prompted. That's great, by the way. Those are great questions. If you're listening, that would be something you want to write down. Those are, I feel like both of those questions are consistent. They're relevant on every call. Mm-hmm. That's really, really good. One of the things that I kind of tie these two together of like you mentioned, right? The prioritization is get the deal and price versus get access to somebody's network in time and quality as far as a different prioritization between new and seasoned. I think what you just did, those questions, after someone would give an answer, one of the things that I would respond with is I'd say, hey, Taylor, that's great. Look, here's the deal. Most of the time you're going to get on the phone with somebody and they're going to be so quick to try to get you what you need because they want to get this off their desk because they've got 6 other requests behind it and they're, probably got too much work anyway, that they're not going to ask you the stuff that's really important. You have all this other stuff. Has anybody ever asked you about those other lines of business? No. Well, because usually when you call an agency, they're just an order taken. They're just trying to get that deal done. We're different here. I'm different here. I'm looking for full-time clients, just like you're looking for a full-time agent. And so, we look at everything to make sure we give you the best experience. We're not just gonna fix one of your tires on your car. You know what I mean? So if that's valuable to you, we're just a little different here. I hope that that's something, and then I would get a response. And so there I'm setting an expectation. I'm selling a value prop, but I'm also linking that to being different. And so if I can link it to being different, then this person's going to want to refer me to their network. I'm doing something that other people are not doing. So the other thing I would say is on that, as far as I think a lot of new producers are afraid to ask those questions because they don't want to ask somebody for more money. And it's like, no, like that's not the problem. You said the problem you're solving. The problem you're solving is I've got a family, I've got a work, the last thing I want to do is call you about insurance. That's the real problem, is that I'm having to get on the phone and I'm having to handle my insurance. Nobody wants to handle insurance.
I just left the house. I got to fight with my wife. I dropped my kids at daycare, and now I got to handle insurance.
She said, did you call the insurance agency today? Oh, no, I didn't do it today. You have to call the agent today, right? Like, it's the last thing someone wants to deal with. So, like, the time factor and making sure that it's right, I just want to know that it's done right, is such a bigger prioritization for the right client. The clients that you want, that's a priority. The clients that you don't want don't have that priority. So the fear of, well, they might not do business with me because they might not value that. Well, that's just a pre-qualification anyway, because you're trying to get to the clients that value quality and time, because those are the best ones. They have multiple lines of business. They're going to stay with you forever. They're going to be loyal, and they're going to be, they're going to be reasonable.
Refer friends.
Yeah, they're going to refer business. So, so I just want to paint the picture of this of like, okay, you're on the phone, you do all this work. Someone spends $10,000 with you on the main lines of business that they need help with, the ones that they shop all the time, the ones that they have to take care of, right? The mandatory stuff. But yet you don't ask them for for a $500 umbrella policy. They don't even know what an umbrella policy is.
Yep.
Right? They have jewelry. They have a wedding ring. They have watches. They have all these things for jewelry. No one's even talked to them about the fact that on a homeowner's policy, there's $500 in limited coverage.
Yep.
Right? Nobody's having a conversation. They don't even know about it. Number one, if you brought it up, it would be a differentiating factor. They'd be like, wow, this person, no one's ever said this to me.
Yep.
It now matches that value prop. So if I can show that, I can get access to the network because I'm different. But secondly, I think you don't want to ask for those lines of business because someone's paying $10,000. You don't want to ask for more money. But the way I would encourage you to look at it is like, no, they're paying $10,000 with you already.
Right.
It's not that much more. Like, you can add all this extra value for an incremental more. I could double, triple, quadruple the perceived value that I give somebody while only asking for 10% more money. It's just, you're looking, it's disproportionately, it's disproportionate return for the deposit that I'm about to make, right? And the worst case scenario is I bring all these up and they say, "Oh man, I'm not ready to make a decision on that. It's just too overwhelming. Budget's tight, yada yada yada." Right? But I can easily say, "Look, here's the deal. I would be doing you a disservice." And candidly, Taylor, the reality is I think it's almost immoral for you to spend $10,000 on your home and auto with me and me not to bring up some of the things that are the most important, and yet all of them all together don't even cost $1,000.
I.e. flood and umbrella, I think about immediately low-hanging fruit.
And everybody's got it in every
policies.
industry. There's all these things that add additional value, but that are just a little bit more, but yet we don't ask for them because we're afraid, or we think that, if this was me, I wouldn't want to pay any more money because this is already expensive. When the reality is, for the right type of client, for the client you're trying to go after, that is the only thing that they care about.
Yeah. And I think it also, the discipline of asking questions first, I think uncovers that kind of stuff, right? Like one thing you just said, I love the way that you use it as a differentiator. Hey, most agents aren't going to tell you this, but ultimately, here's what I'm going to tell you.
That's an important piece.
It is.
I'm framing that because they might not be thinking that, but now if I say that.
And by the way, if they've talked to another agent, then they've already experienced that. So you now gain authority and trust by setting an expectation that is a very likely expectation that they've experienced. And look, let's call it this. Most times they have talked to another agent. Yep. And another question that is an anchor question that I'd also encourage you to write down is to say, one that I love. Let's say somebody's calling you and they want you to look at the home insurance, whatever. Hey man, I'm thrilled about this opportunity. I actually think we can really help you. People like you, we crush it with.
That's a frame you just framed.
Yeah, because you're using specificity. Yep. I can say people like you, and I can say people with good credit, low claims history, whatever. I can do whatever it is to get to the point. and it's true. Yep. By the way, it absolutely is true. I'm not making something up. I'm using authenticity, and I'm being genuine in finding something I can connect with and share with. That's a reality. Hey, but I'm curious, Brett. Like, why didn't you call the agent that does your car insurance for this?
Wow.
Well, I guess I could, man. I guess the reality, I don't even know who my agent is.
Well, they
won't do it.
Well, they're with so and so, and they don't even do.
Oh, that. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, because here's I want to say it. And here's a little bit about what we do. Most agents, they're just going to take your order and they're going to fulfill it. What we do is we look at reducing your overall cost year by year. And we do that through X, Y, and Z, and it's more of an experience, but it's really focused on overall cost of risk. It's time and convenience. It's based on trust. A few of those things. I figured the reason that you're calling, would you be open to those things? Do those seem like something that would help? And yeah, I mean, gosh, my current agent doesn't do anything now. Like that would be great. Okay, boom. Now I know, and I've already framed the fact that when I bring up the umbrella and the flood, it is through the lens that I'm doing you a service and not a due service, rather than the new producer does the home, doesn't mention anything else, wants to become that person's friend, which we're going to get to. And at the end, they try to supersize it, right? At the very end, they go, hey, oh, by the way, we want flood insurance? And they're like, well, man, I'm just doing the home, man. And all of a sudden it brings my guard up and because I feel like this person is trying to sell me something else.
Because you waited to the end.
Yes.
Yes, because you didn't set the expectations up front.
What's ironic, and we want to get to that next phase, the new producer thinks they're doing a service to the person by not, quote unquote, bugging them on the front end. Mm-hmm. So let me take this homeowner's insurance to get to the finish line, and then I'll ask.
Show value
first, right?
And then I'll ask for it. But psychologically, that person's just not ready for that. That's not what they signed up for. Whereas, and that's, I wrote this down for process, which I'd love you to kind of hit on this and give more context. But new producers, they do, and then they ask.
Yes.
Seasoned producers ask, then they do.
Say it louder.
There's such a big difference in that, and you just hit on it with just the psychology behind. Number one, I'm not going to do something for you unless I know I'm going to get at least a high predictable result. Like I'm not going to work on this unless I know I'm more than likely going to earn the business because I've asked the right questions up front. I'm not entitled to the business, but if I ask the right questions up front and I know that I can deliver, well, then I know I'm more than likely going to get the business. But I have to ask these questions in order to pre-qual. Then I'll go ahead and do it. Plus, I'm going to ask and make sure that if I'm going to do all this for you. And I just want to make sure you know this is part of my process. Can we agree on that? If I get the agreement, it's like, okay, cool. Now I can execute everything. But if I just say, oh, we're going to do homeowner's insurance or we're going to do X, Y, and Z product, and then I get to the end, it's like, well, that's a separate process. That's not part of this process. But yeah, you know what, Taylor? Absolutely. In a month, 2 months, 6 months, I'd love to revisit that. I'm happy to look at it. But it's almost like there's a distinction that it's not part of this transaction because it wasn't even part of our conversation.
Right.
It's unfair.
And it takes a certain amount of energy as a prospect to go,
no, I got to
wait, I got to go back. I thought we were done.
Yeah.
Now I got to, no, I don't want to go get my auto insurance. No, I don't want to get my, right? So that's a great point. And I think what you're hinting at is a pre-close is how can I say, Brett, we talked about this yesterday. How do I earn the right to ask a question early on in this conversation? How are you going to ask me about this stuff when you just met me? You just got a lead. Maybe your referral partner's involved. Because, right, that's what a lot of new producers think. Well, I can't ask a tough question because there's a referral partner that sent me the piece of business because they're still viewing it through that lens. And so we talk about rapport yesterday. So how do you quickly build rapport in order to ask those tough questions?
So good. I mean, you can do it a lot of ways, but I mean, as long as you're in rapport, you can also, one of the things I love doing too is I like saying what everybody's thinking. It reduces people's guard. So for example, hey Taylor, I know the last thing I want you to think is that I'm going to tell you about these 3 extra products that I want you to spend more money with me. That's just not the case. But what I've noticed from doing this a long time is that most people don't want to ask these questions because they're scared to ask you for more money, but it's almost immoral for you to spend all this money and not know about these because these are almost infinitely more important than the stuff that you have to get. So I would be doing you a disservice. So I'm going to lay it all out if, you make the decision, but I can't. It's part of my process. I can't get to the end and then spring it on you then. That's just not fair to you.
Yep.
So I just put it all on the table, right?
Yep.
It's like instead of allowing things to be, that they're thinking it, it's like just put it on the table.
Yeah.
And it reduces people's guard. They go, okay, cool. Well, at least he's intuitive enough or socially aware enough to know how I'm feeling at this moment or how I could feel. And they go, I feel understood.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And it draws people in. So you can do that with a lot of things. As long as you do that the right way, it's a great way. As long as you're in rapport, you can ask things that most people don't have the ability to ask. They don't feel comfortable asking it because they just don't know how to get to a place where they've earned the right to be able to do that.
Yeah, we talk about the new producer wanting to be every prospect's friend versus the seasoned producer wants to be friendly. Meaning, when you think about those two ways to approach a prospect, how does that fit your lens and how you immediately jump into that conversation?
Yeah, that goes back to rapport. Because if I'm trying to be somebody's friend, it might take me, it takes so much longer to build rapport. Because it's just such a higher, I don't know, if it was on a chart, that would be such a high on the chart. Friendly would be right, but just a little warm.
Yep.
Being someone's friend would be like hot.
Yep.
And
by the way, when I go to Starbucks and order coffee, I don't expect them to walk behind the counter and let me give them their life story, right? So a part of me thinks I'm there to buy coffee. Yeah. That you talk about stating the obvious. Somebody called you to take care of their insurance. They didn't call you to go through, so there's this level of understanding where friendly acknowledges maybe a little bit of personalization and trying to become the person's friend comes off a lot of times weird because it's like, look, dude, I called you for insurance, man. So like some people may be more willing to talk than others, but at the end of the day, like I called you for a reason.
Yeah. It's like someone is saying, making the connection on a football team. Let's say UCF, it's like go Knights, man. And then they move on. Now I'm in rapport. I made a connection. Whereas somebody wants to go through a 10-minute story about UCF and ask 4 different questions about UCF and when did you graduate and what did this and did you join this club and did you do this? And it's like, it's too much. Like you're taking so long to get through your process. Yeah, and it's also about the point of like if you get to even let's say you become successful in what you're trying to do. Sure. You become their friend.
Yep.
The minute you become their friend, it's very difficult to ask these questions. You can, when you're friendly, you can ask these questions, because when you ask these questions, make no mistake, it does get a little uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. This is sales. You're supposed to be a little uncomfortable, right? Like, that's how it goes. You have to in sales, you're trying to get people to make a decision. And a lot of times people don't want to make a decision. So the art of a good sales professional is my ability to make you just a little bit uncomfortable enough to where you have to make a choice. Because the reality, left to your own device, you probably wouldn't make a choice. That's good salesmanship. If I get to the friend level and I'm successful in what I'm pursuing, I've just basically shot myself in the foot, because I can't ask these tough questions.
Or if you do ask, maybe they don't come with the same authority.
Maybe they don't come with the same authority.
Now I see you as my friend rather than a friendly advisor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's like, be careful. We say don't want what you don't want. And, that in and of itself is setting you up for failure, because there needs to be some sort of friction in a advisory or salesmanship type of role, right? If I go to my financial advisor and I want to pull out a bunch of money because I want to go buy an exotic car, or I want to do something maybe that's not necessarily in alignment with what our plan was, do I want my advisor to just not even call me but just zip me the money? Or do I want to feel a little bit of embarrassment that I got to go to my advisor and ask them for this money, even though I told them that I wanted X, Y, and Z and we developed a plan? That friction is important with an advisory relationship, because left to my own will and human habits, I'm going to do something that's detrimental to my success, right? And so that friction is important. And when you get to that friend area, it's almost as if that friction goes away and it doesn't allow you to be effective.
Gosh, that's so true. And we talk about how you build rapport quickly. I love finding something a little bit personal and then coming right back. And then maybe finding something a little personal and then come right back. And that's part of the leading a conversation, to where sometimes you allow the space to naturally let the conversation, but boom, you got to bring it right back. Yeah. Because I've also been on those calls to where you allow it to go and then you've lost it. And it takes way too much time, and you're actually getting the outcome that you don't want, which is becoming this person's friend rather than being friendly. And so if you can ask better questions on the front end, I think about that one. Hey, I'm just curious. People don't want to ask that. People don't want to ask, hey, I'm curious, why didn't you call the agent that does your other car insurance?
So that is an easy question. It's not difficult, but it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. And people don't want the answer. If you're a new producer, they go, well, I don't want them to call.
I don't want to bring up the fact that there's other agents. Yeah. I don't want to bring up their other agents.
Then they might call another agent.
I don't want them to think about the other agent, because I don't even want to acknowledge that the fact that they might be talking to other people, because I don't want it to be the reality. But if you would just ask that question, you learn a lot. Yeah.
Because they're going to give you an answer, and then you're going to know, okay, I'm going to do this, home insurance quote regardless, right? A lot of times, because I have a referral source that's in it, or I'm at least going to check the box regardless of fit, right? On bigger deals, you're not going to quote it, right? Like on commercial deals, like if somebody is not pre-closing and understanding if there's a fit, or understanding of how they're shopping or if they're shopping, you're not going to go do that, because you're going to spend hours and hours and sometimes months doing work, and then to get to the end and them not give you the opportunity.
There was never a chance for you to get
So let me just speak to the producers. By not asking this question, you are costing everyone time and money. Yourself, the prospect, everything. And so if you could just do one thing different, it would be able to find rapport quicker, be friendly, and then ask those anchor questions earlier on in the process before you start putting the pizzas in the oven.
That's so good. I remember having these conversations, and let's call it what it is. When you ask those questions of why didn't you call them for X, Y, and Z, sometimes they give you the answer that says, oh, well, I've just been with them and then the next leading question that I would ask is, well, that's interesting. So they don't offer that. So they're not able to service all of your needs. If I was able to service all of your needs, would you do business with me on everything? And sometimes they say, no, I've been with X, Y, and Z for 15 years. I'm not going to move that. Mm-hmm. And here's what this is important. Uncomfort. This is discomfort. Okay. It's discomfort for them. It's discomfort for me, but this is perfect, because conflict creates understanding. We got to get to an understanding here. This has got to be great for you, and this has got to be great for me too. And so I used to have the conversations, and sometimes they would say, yeah, I'm just not going to move that. Here's why. And I would say, man, okay, I understand. Well, here's the thing. If I have 4 other prospects that want to give me all of their business, right? And I want to take care of them at a high level. And then you can imagine you just want me to carve out this one. I want to make sure that you get the same insurance experience that everybody else does, but I'm just not able to do that unless I'm able to service full accounts. Are you genuinely not interested of moving the business because it's inconvenient because you'd have to move it? Or are you genuinely not interested in moving it because you just are in love with them? That's another question I would ask. It's like, I know you don't want to move it because it's a pain in the butt, but do you not want to move it because you just love them? And usually they say, well, no, I haven't talked to them in 5 years. I really am not in that mindset. I don't want to do it. Yep. And now I just got to a place that I can overcome that objection.
Yes.
So now what happens is the new producer never had the opportunity and never came back to it because they gave him a rebuttal and because they didn't ask good questions. The seasoned producer is pushing on it a little bit. Now, I'm not abrasive.
Right.
I'm gonna slowly waltz with this prospect and let them know that I care. I'm not gonna beat down the door, but I have set an expectation to them that, you know, in order for us to do business at the highest level, I'm gonna need for us to be able to enter into this type of relationship. And then I would back in by saying, look, I'm gonna do, here's what I'm gonna do, Taylor. I get it. I understand that you don't want to take care of that right now because you're worried about this, but it's easier if we do it all up front. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to give you a quote on everything all together. And can we revisit this at least when we come down to binding the insurance at the end? Mm-hmm. Okay. They're either going to say yes or no, but now they're more than likely going to say yes. Now they didn't have to make a decision. They didn't have to make a commitment, but I also set the expectations. I have a way higher likelihood of closing that at the end because there's going to be 3 or 4 different interactions. They're going to enjoy the way that I do business, and we're going to have a high likelihood of closing that. Or they're going to say, hey, I don't have those documents. I just really don't. I just need you to really take care of this right now. And then my next conversation, most people would just shut it down right there. But then my next conversation with them, or the next thing I would say, says, Taylor, I respect that. I get that. You called me for this. Okay. So I totally understand that. Tell me if this is fair. I'm going to do an unbelievable job for you by taking care of this homeowner's insurance. And by the end of this, you're going to realize that if I take care of this the way that I take care of everything else, you're going to give me every single piece of business that you have. I'd love to just keep the door open if that's okay. And then they go, yes, that's okay. Yep. But I got a commitment. I got a commitment. It went from no, I'm not interested to now maybe. Yes. Right. And so, because I'm going to take care of the need anyway, but now I got the maybe. Yep. So now I over deliver. I get to the end. I might even have a chance of getting at the end. But now I've also set expectations that in the future I'm going to be able to potentially get it. But now they know that to get the highest level of value out of working with me, this is full transparency. This is what we do. So the next renewal, the next opportunity, it's not going to be a surprise to them that this is coming up because I was able to have that conversation up front. So closing ratios just they drastically improve because no's turn into yeses, no's turn into maybes. And ultimately, that's the difference between a seasoned professional and a new professional. Yep. They're able to take a situation and waltz their way with the client to get to the outcome. Because their problem is, I just don't want to deal with this right now. Their problem isn't, I love that person, I'm never going to leave them.
That's what they're telling you, right? Which is not always accurate, which most of the time is not accurate. Because I was also thinking a lot about the way you were saying and the way you were phrasing. This is a big key. Tonality matters, right? Also, humor. I think about somebody saying, hey, I'm super loyal, I'll never leave that person. Then you ask another question, they go, well, I haven't talked to him in 5 years. And I would insert humor. Come on, Bob, you haven't talked to him in 5 years?
So good.
You're still that loyal? He hasn't reached out to you in 5 years? Come on, I know I'm still in the game and I have a shot, right? If I'm in rapport, I can make humor allow me to cut through rather than saying, well, why are you so loyal? You haven't talked to him in 5 years. He hasn't reached out. You feel the difference? Yeah. And so it's also these anchor questions. I would err on the side of deference and curiosity and playfulness rather than judgment or casting guilt or shame, right? So I think the new producer thinks about what they say. I think the seasoned producer thinks about how they say it and when they say it.
Yeah. Our partner, Rod, is, obviously you guys know Rod from the podcast, but he's fantastic at this. He just is able to ask questions that you kind of go, wow, can't believe you. But he does it in a playful way, and he does it in a way that, is.
And the framing of it. Like you mentioned, putting your cards on the table. Man, tell me if I'm out of line. But hey, like you just shared a story. Am I just completely crazy to think that if I do a really good job on this one, that you would still at least consider me for the other lines?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, man, fine. Like you got, you are doing a great job. I'm open to it. Okay, cool, man. I just want to make sure I'm not out of line because, look, this is going to be a lot of work that we're going to be hearing. We're going to be talking to each other, right? There's this level of now I'm building. And then another thing I think about is, under-promising, over-delivering versus over-promising and under-delivering. I just truly believe that if you set an expectation, meet it. The more expectations you can set and meet it, the more trust that you build quickly. They may be small expectations. You talked about an expectation of, hey, you'll probably call most places, and most places are just going to take your order, and they may not even call you back. Yeah, I experienced that. I just gained trust. Hey, man, whatever it is, the more, hey, you know what? I got a call coming in. I know it's only 5 minutes. Can I call you back at 1:05 just to make sure I can give you my undivided attention? I'm wrapping up with the client. I just got to take a note. Yeah, great. If you say you're going to call somebody at 1:05, call them at 1:05.
Yeah,
you call them at 1:05, you meet an expectation, you build trust.
Yeah.
So the more little stopping points that you have, and you can, hey, you're going to get a lot of quotes from other agents. Look, here's what's going to be confusing. They're all going to use different dwelling values. And you're going to probably,
that's good.
You're probably going to feel pretty confused.
Wow, that's good.
And here's what I'd tell you. You're making a decision on the agent that you're working with, and you got to really trust them. And they'll help you make sure that dwelling value and that coverage and that company's right for you.
Oof.
So don't get overwhelmed and then they
that
go.
That is so good.
Yeah, and then they get a couple quotes and
because
they go, man, all the dwelling values are different.
Yeah.
I'm confused. You know what? I'm going to call Taylor because he said that was going to happen.
God, that's so good, man. I've never heard that. But the only reason you're saying that is to establish authority and to build trust.
Yep.
Because if you set expectations and you meet them, you build trust.
That's it.
And at the end of the day, people are going to do business with who they feel most comfortable with.
Like and trust, rapport.
That's great. That's great. Well, then that leads me to the last section, which is post-closing expectations. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of expectations. We talk about setting the sale. We talk a lot about expectations through the sales process, which we're not going to get into today. We probably did touch on some of it on the way through here. But let's talk about post-closing, because in our business, and I would make the assumption that in many businesses, the sales professional takes some prospect through the sales process and then a sale is made. And after that, there is either a transition to the service team, a product delivery team that has to come in, or a combined effort. But after that process, in a lot of different places, almost every business, there's a product delivery portion of post-sale. In our business, which is a service-driven business, there is a massive challenge with new producers getting tied into a lot of the service stuff that happens after the sale, whereas the senior, and I should say senior, but seasoned agent is really not. They do very limited service. So they get involved with claims, they get involved with high-level challenges, they get pulled into things. They're available, but they have much less. It's a much less hands-on approach to product delivery. And obviously, you take two people, they have the same teams, they have the same resources. That presents a very big challenge for the new producer. So let's talk about that distinction of why that's such a big deal, and then some of the pitfalls of why that happens and what somebody can do to set themselves up for post-closing expectations that are going to be more beneficial to them in the future as far as the producer.
Yeah, it's fine at first, right? If you're a new producer, it's actually like super, super simple. You go, and some people may even train on that. Hey, sell yourselves. Your differentiator is you. And look, it doesn't matter. We're sitting here having a conversation. We could go out in our sales pit, and you're still going to have somebody selling on themselves. Hey, man, after this, if you need anything, you call me. Really? Like, if I need anything, like if I get a flat tire and I need an oil change, I'm going to call you. And like, I'm obviously being sarcastic, but that's how people sell. If you need anything at all, just give me a call. rather than, so they're selling them, right? It's people dependent. It's me dependent, right? It's very nice, and you think the customer wants to hear it because their pain is that they can't get a hold of their agent. So now you're giving them free reign and access. I'm going to give you my cell phone too. Anytime, weekend. I work 7 days a week. I don't sleep. You can call me in the middle of the night. Whatever. I'm the best agent in the world, right? You're like, okay, dude. Like, fine. You won the deal. You won the battle, right? I'll give you that. But you're absolutely going to get massacred in the war. And so the difference would be selling me versus selling the experience. And if you want to include you, sell how you fit into the experience.
That's so good.
Meaning, what are the particular things that if they become an issue that you'd want to speak to me about? I'll give you an example. Hey, look, by the way, I'm so glad we were able to take care of this. After closing, sometimes your bank will settle another bank. It's a simple transaction, but it's important. Our service team all day long does these kind of requests. They're going to be way more timely than me. They do it every single day. So I just want to make sure you have their information. Obviously, I'd love to hear from you, but my responsiveness won't be there. You won't want to work with me on this. Here's in the future where you'd want to work with me. If you have a claim situation that you get pushback on, or you need some advocacy or whatever it is, those are the things that I can really step in as your advisor and help. If you're having some service challenges or whatever it is, feel free. But I will tell you, our service team's incredible. Like, when this pizza goes into the oven and we go to the next step, you're going to hear from Alex. You're going to hear from Lindsay. And all they do is make sure that next year you're in a better spot than where you were before, or next year that we don't lose that touch. And so we operate as a team, and that experience is something we're super proud of, because look, this isn't just you buying insurance here for a year. This is a 5-year decision. This is a 7-year, 10-year decision. And we hope that every single year you're just as much a priority as in year one. And this is the way we do it. And that experience is something that we're proud of.
Come on, man.
Right? So that way, when I email my agent, because my bank changes and it takes them 2 days to get back to me because they're onboarding new clients, my first experience with the agency is now frustration.
Yes.
We've oversold and underdelivered on the first experience. So all that trust that I just built by meeting expectations, I lose.
Isn't that funny how, like, you think you're doing the client a service by saying, hey, send it to me. And you know what? Hey, send it to me and I'll get it to the appropriate party.
Yep.
Right?
Everything runs through me.
Yeah, everything's, it's almost like it's this ego thing. I need to be involved because it's my client. Yep. And it's like, dude, you're hurting yourself so bad because you think you're doing a service because you're better. You're basically saying I'm better than everybody else. And so it's got to come through me because I just do it better than everybody else. That's number one. Number two,
Just de-edifies your team.
You de-edifies your team. But then number three, the reality is why do we have a team approach? Because you can't respond fast enough. And so that 2 days goes by and you missed expectations. I mean, even if you did it 3 times better, the fact that it took you that long to respond, whereas your team can respond right away, it does not compare. It doesn't compare, right? So you're not, people think that, right, you said, like, the problem that you're solving is that you can't get in touch with your agent. You can get in touch with me because I'm better with that in communication. But it's like, no, the problem you're solving is that we have a team approach, and that's why we're able to be responsive. And so if you set expectations in that way, if you say, hey, well, we have a service team, they're going to take over from here because they do the service side, I do the sales side. Yep. That doesn't give the customer any context. But if you say, look, we have a team approach because when you send me an email, more than likely it's going to take me 2-3 days to respond, unfortunately. It's not because I don't want to. It's just that's how it goes. So what we did was have a team approach of all they do every day is make sure they're responsive and they cater to the needs of our clients. And so as I'm a client, I go, oh, well, that makes sense. Well, I want better service. I want better response time. That is how you guys do it. Perfect. Then I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to so-and-so.
So you've just flipped it.
I've just flipped it.
And what's interesting, I think about it, well, why does this matter? Well, where did we start with this conversation, right? What's the desired outcome? We talk about the new producer versus seasoned producer, and the new producer, I'm just going to get this deal done, boom. How many can I get done? Boom, 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 hamster wheel. And the seasoned producer goes, no, I'm gonna work through this person's network. So if I can deliver on all that we just shared,
long term,
and I can meet that expectation because I've edified my service team and our experience, that customer is going to walk away from that transaction saying, wow, man, Brett, his team, man, they just do such a good job. Man, who's your guys in? So they're going to refer more people objectively. They're going to stay with you longer, which is they're going to have more lifetime value. They're going to buy more products for you because you've asked, tougher questions, quote unquote, on the front end and understood and set that expectation. And they're going to refer more of their friends in their network, reducing the customer acquisition costs for you. And so all three things are extremely important. And regardless of what business end, those are all three things that you would track religiously. And as a producer, your micro system within the system is no different, right? It's just a microcosm of what a greater business or a bigger business would track. And there's a reason they track those things.
Well, man, we're going to end it right there. That is gold. I'll tell you what, the end of that podcast should be the intro for the podcast, because that is a great way to wrap that up. Great way to wrap that up, man. That's awesome. I'll tell you what, I love talking sales with you, man. It's super fun.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, be good. We should do some like live dials and, just record it. It'd be fun.
Done.
All right, man. Thanks, guys, for listening. Have a great day.